समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
While tracking India's travels over LPG and natural gases, CNG, PNG, etc., impacting households, MSMEs, and fertilizer production in particular, I got curious about how China, with a GDP 5 times ours, looks so calm. The upshot from all this research, it has been wise, China has been wise, and we frightfully complacent in India. Like us, China is not endowed with significant oil and gas and imports quite a lot of it. Yet, unlike us, it isn't in panic mode. Why? We know that China gets the bulk of its crude and some gas from Russia through land pipelines. They have a long land border. Is that enough? Here we are in panic about our fertilizer situation as we head into the Kharif planting, but China is calm, not only about its own needs but also its export commitments. We also depend on fertilizer imports from China. There are bitter memories of the fertilizer squeeze that China put on us after the East Ladakh Galwan crisis. The Chinese, however, have not invoked any force majeure on their fertilizer exports as yet. The answer came as I researched beyond my usual domains. It was a shocking reality check, shocking both in terms of the Chinese success and our usual pedestrianism. All talk, little outcome. Here are some cruel facts. China has few gas fields, yet enough gas. How come? It's because China patiently invested capital, skill, and technology in coal gasification. Predictable story, India started talking of the idea around the same time as the Chinese and produces no more than about 3 to 5% of the Chinese output of 80 million metric tons per annum of gasification products. India consumes about 1.4% of the 340 million metric tons per annum MMTPA of coal that China uses for this gasification. Just 1.4% of China. In accounting, this would be called a rounding error. In 2007, the UPA government talked big on coal bed methane, CBM, and set up a tiny pilot plant at Raniganj. The idea has mostly remained in deep freeze since then. In any case, under the UPA, coal acquired a bad name with all the scams and nobody wanted to touch it. In the COVID-inspired flurry of reform in 2020, however, the Modi government unveiled a super ambitious national coal gasification mission. I will share a link to the entire mission document with you from the Coal Ministry's website. You will also see screenshots on your screens. I use the description super ambitious consciously because the plan targeted 100 million tons per annum in coal gasification output by 2030, entailing investments of rupees 4 trillion or 4 lakh crores. At 100 million tons per annum, our gas output, also called synthetic gas or syngas, will be 25% more than China's today. It made an incredible headline, as it should have. We are well into the sixth of this 10-year plan. And the total production, whether from some legacy activity or the post-2020 initiatives, is just around 5 MMTPA in a good year. Of this two, 1.8 MMTPA comes from the Jindal Steel and Power Plant at Angul, Odisha. It uses an innovative modern process and is mostly for internal consumption. Again, from what the Coal Ministry and the Niti Aayog websites tell us, seven gasification projects, coal gasification projects involving investments of 64,000 crores have been approved. All of these have government incentives, some in cash as well. Almost all of these projects, mostly in the public sector in joint ventures with Coal India Limited, are meandering or circling in the regulatory orbit. I read about Eastern Coalfields, which is a Coal India subsidiary, underground coal gasification project at Kasta in Jharkhand's Jamtara district. Jamtara, which is famous or infamous for all the wrong reasons. Remember those phone calls, the spams, digital arrests? This plant, however, should have started producing by now. It just got caught in an argument between the coal and the environment ministries. Environment ministry insists the project should be 300 meters deep. Coal ministry wants 150 to 160 meters. The result, the usual Indian story, a dog's breakfast in the name of governance delivery. To make us feel even more rotten, I need to underline that we limit our coal extraction to open cast mining. जो सरफेस पे है वो हम माइन करते हैं. All our underground coal is unexploited while the Chinese are going 3 kilometers underground. The two good readings on the coal ministry website come from private sector conglomerates, Adani and Jindal. They remind us that India has the 5th largest stores of coal in the world. They explain the technical processes with flowcharts, list out the reforms and resources needed. Of course, they invoke strategic benefits, including this season's favorite, energy Atmanirbharta or Urja Atmanirbharta. It's all very neat. Like China, we haven't lacked foresight. But unlike China, we won't move from words to action. As crude prices decline, we lose interest. And we are not the only ones. Indonesia, with the 7th largest coal reserves of high quality, very high quality, has also been a laggard. It too is now moving in the right direction, the direction of gasification. The Chinese don't get distracted easily. They figured early enough that oil shocks will be part of life, particularly with the US employing sanctions as leverage. They decided to invest in what they owned and persisted relentlessly, whatever the market fluctuations. They did not lose their way or interest during the hydrocarbon down cycles because crude can go to $60, $58. Today it may be $120. It's very volatile. They, as in the Chinese, remained consistent and steadfast. They saw energy independence through coal as a national strategic objective and achieved it, not purely a commercial one. We, as usual, got caught in political bureaucratic regulatory analysis paralysis. The peculiar problem with the Indian system is that while these are long gestation projects, at any point as the prices fall, somebody in some bhavan in Lutyens, Delhi will knock their cost effectiveness. ये तो worthwhile ही नहीं है. This is not worthwhile. Why are we spending money on this? That kills private sector enthusiasm and that scares the public sector. Why did the Chinese succeed? They viewed this as a strategic project and stayed focused. It has protected China from these energy shocks and India is nursing its wounded pride. Coal, we know, is an unpopular fuel, but this is all India has. And while coal to chemicals is also a polluting activity, it's much less so than burning it in power plants. In any case, more of our power generation is moving to renewables, solar, wind, etc. now, and nuclear is poised to make a big comeback. Donald Trump will be gone on 20th January 2029, and climate change will return on the global agenda. Coal will again become evil. The time to employ our large stores of coal in a less polluting and more profitable way is now. It also brings strategic security and stability. Finally, while burning coal for electricity may be evil or maybe highly polluting, turning it into gas is much less so. It causes pollution, but much less so. And sulfur, a significant byproduct, is in much demand for industry as well as for fertilizing, particularly our soils. Again, it's a chemical for which we are import dependent. Consumers, especially in the middle class, have political power and so we get fixated on fuel, LPG, diesel, petrol, their availability or prices. Fertilizer shortages are an even bigger threat because this affects our food security. It's just that our TV channels won't go apoplectic on behalf of the farmers. The Kharif season is coming up. Already, even before this war, the grain surplus producing states were already rationing mostly imported urea and DAP. Producing these fertilizers needs enormous volumes of gas and ammonia. In fact, 30% of all natural gas that India produces or imports goes to fertilizer plants. And now for shock therapy, let me tell you the China story. China produces more than 90% of its ammonia from coal gasification. Ammonia is essential for diammonium phosphate or DAP. India imports much of it, and so severe are the shortages that to prevent rioting or looting by desperate farmers, many states store the supplies in their police stations, allocating them to farmers on the basis of their land holdings and Aadhaar based registrations. Now, hold your breath. China uses syngas, synthetic gas as it's called, derived from coal, to produce 40% of the entire world's urea. It also produces 54% of all of the world's methanol, and around 70% of this methanol comes from coal. And where do we stand? Among the large agricultural producers, we are the most import dependent for our fertilizers. Even the Chinese can turn that lever anytime they feel irritated or want to put us in our place. We routinely celebrate food grain self-sufficiency, good, but the reality underneath is a national humiliation that we hide. Our crippling dependence on fertilizer imports is also a ship-to-mouth existence by another name. This war in the Gulf has driven home these vulnerabilities to us. It's a call to action. How to do it? China has already shown us the way.